All right, so I want to share with you guys what I just experienced in this whole process. Where to start? So my wife and I bought a RV. We're going to use the RV to boondock. Now, we came upon this decision, and this is important, so stay with me. We came upon this decision because we moved here to Washington, and part of that process is eventually we wanted to buy our own land and build our own house. So the universe kind of pushed us in this direction a little faster than we had anticipated, but we're here now, we have an RV, and in this process we're trying to fix up the RV so that way we can use that to live on our land once we buy our land. So, you know, it's all part of the process. But originally we were gonna, you know, buy the land and then build a canopy, one of those canopy homes. It's like a 20 foot by 30 foot or something like that. But then we realized it would be a little too cold out here in Washington with the weather change and the rain and all that stuff. So we ended up using the money that we got back from the rental we moved out of to just purchase an RV outright. And the RV that we bought, we got at a used dealership. It had a couple minor tweaks to it that needed to be done, but nothing we couldn't, you know, take care of. And thankfully we have a place to stay here that we can hook up to shore power, so while we're fixing everything, we can still live like normal people and have everything we need before we, you know, have to eventually limit everything and become accustomed to doing that, which is actually, it's quite a process and it's quite a commitment. It's something that we're learning now. I mean, moving from a house into an RV, we had to get rid of a lot of stuff. We downsized a lot. You know, we ended up getting a storage facility to put stuff in, but, you know, if we're going to buy land and live on the land and then build a house, that's a process. So are we going to really store all this stuff for X amount of years and then hopefully it's still like what we want, it's our decor? You get what I'm going with this. But the RV, while we're fixing it up, you know, I'm learning as I go. I've never stepped foot in an RV. Actually, that's not true. I stepped foot in an RV once. It was a very large, very, in my opinion, obnoxious RV. You know, my wife and I are used to tent camping, you know, roughing it, backpacking, stuff like that. So an RV was never something that I ever wanted. I started building Willow, which is a teardrop trailer. She's about 9 foot by 5.5 foot sleeper, so that way we can tow her behind my wife's Subaru and take her out camping and stuff like that. So we upgraded from the tent to that. She's not finished yet, still a work in progress. This kind of takes priority now, working on the trailer versus working on Willow. But I know nothing about RVs. Nothing. Like, zero. So going into this, my wife loved the whole boondocking idea and being able to, like, live sustainably on our own land and, you know, wanting to be an environmentalist. That, you know, was right up my alley, and I'm like, yes, let's do it, I'm all for this. Not realizing the extent that all of this would take, which, it's funny, my wife asked me last night, like, you know, if we knew how much work and all this stuff would go into this now, would you still do it? And I'm like, heck yeah, like, I'm loving this. It's just trial and error. So, in that trial and error, this brings me to the point of this video, an inverter. An inverter is extremely important. I assumed the RV had an inverter. Everyone was talking about an inverter. You need an inverter for your power source. And, you know, a coworker asked me, oh, do you have an inverter? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it comes with it. So yesterday I went through, and we only have a few things we have to do before we're able to disconnect from shore power and move on to a cute little spot we found and live there, you know, self-sufficiently, you know, while we save up money so we can buy our own land. And, you know, I'll be doing school full time out of the RV, so we need to make sure that we have enough power to support my computer and charge the phones and stuff for our hotspots for our internet. So, you know, there are certain things that we do have to have versus other boondockers who are just living very minimally in the RV. So we do need to make sure we have enough power. And here in Washington with the the weather, it's kind of hard to work off of pure solar because we don't really get a lot of sun. So the solar is, you know, anyways, sidetracking. So we only have a few things left to do before we're able to disconnect and go to that property. One of the things was connecting the battery, and the other thing is the furnace. I have to fix the furnace. The furnace is broken, but that's next on my list. So the batteries I bought them on Amazon, and I have a whole video of how I did the videos, or the install on the batteries, and trial and error again, and the whole setup of that. But I installed the batteries, did the whole process, got everything hooked up correctly, got the monitor hooked up for the battery, disconnected from the power, the shore power on the house, and my wife's like, only the lights work. And I was like, that's weird, like, let me go check the connection. So I go out there, check the connection, everything's fine. I mean, it's only a couple of cables, so it's kind of dummy proof at this point, up to like, okay, well, these are the two cables, I'm double checking the connections, I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong, and I'm like, I don't understand, these cables are going to the right thing. Again, I'm not an electrician, but I do understand, I'm pretty handy. So we're in the RV trying to figure out like what's going on. Only the lights are working. So we're plugging in stuff here and there, like just little things like the phone charger's not even working. So we're freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this whole process is for nothing. Like, we can't even make this work. Like, it was just like a, oh crap moment. Like, what have we gotten ourselves into? And now we're screwed. All that we've invested in this RV. So then we start Googling it till like 10 o'clock last night as to what we did wrong, the power source. My wife is amazing. She was sitting right next to me on her computer going through everything and like sending me videos of like, okay, well, this video was helpful, find this. We started looking at AC DC stuff about power sources, and I'm like, okay, like, I get that, that makes sense. I understand AC versus DC. So our DC was working, but our AC wasn't working. So, you know, again, we're reading all this information. People are talking about inverters and converters, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. It wasn't until about 9 o'clock that I read this one paragraph that a light bulb went on. And I was like, wait, they're talking about an inverter. I haven't seen that anywhere. Like, this is what it looks like. I assumed it came with the RV. It's an RV. I know nothing about them. Stepped foot in it once. But, you know, this is a 2004, so I'm trying to think in 2004, okay, would it have come with an inverter? Would they have upgraded it since then? And I'm like, crap. So I start going around with a flashlight, trying to think of where they could put, because we gutted this thing. Gutted it, did a remodel, so I know where the electrical is, where all the panels are, and everything like that. So if it was in there, I would have seen it. So I'm going through just double checking where I found things and looking for this little inverter. I'm like, we don't have one. We don't have an inverter. We don't have an inverter. And then I just died laughing. And I was like, after everything that we've done, everything we've researched, everything, like, people have talked about inverters, I've seen inverters, I just assumed the RV had it. Bad assumption. Bad assumption. The RV does not have an inverter. It has a converter, because I found where that was last night. Converter, which is the opposite of an inverter. I learned that. But not an inverter. So even after this entire battery setup, where I thought, yeah, we're good to go, we can unplug from the power now. No. No. We cannot. We have to now buy an inverter, hook up an inverter to the batteries, and then convert plugs. The one we're going to choose has 3 plugs that we can go into. So I'm going to put 3 plugs in the RV, 1 near the pullout so we can use it for our computers, 1 in the kitchen so we can use it for any appliances we need, and then 1 next to the television and the little electrical fireplace we have, and we can also charge our phones right there as well. So I woke up this morning too, and I was just laughing. I'm like, you know, it's just one thing after another that we're learning, that we're going through this whole process and trying to figure out, like, you know, it's not like a house. You know, I've lived in a house. I'm 30 some odd years old. I've lived in houses. I've done stuff with houses. I've helped build houses. I've helped with electrical on houses. I've done electrical on houses. I mean, again, I'm no means a professional at this stuff. I kind of done it on my own, but I've never done really anything with cars. So the concept of the inverter converting from a AGM battery, or a battery itself, to things that would power a house, I didn't understand that concept. So I watched video after video after video last night. My wife was sending me all these videos to watch, and she was watching them, so we both kind of understood how this whole thing works. Yeah, so we found an inverter that we're going to install. We're gonna get that soon. We're gonna make a video on how to do that. The point of this video is, don't assume your RV has anything you need. Just go into it thinking it doesn't have it. It doesn't have it. And then when it has it, you're going to be like, yes, I just saved some money. If it doesn't have it, you're like, well, I didn't think it did. So now going into everything, I'm like, it doesn't have it. It doesn't have it. It has a converter because I found it. It's brand new. Well, it's pretty new. So that's not an issue. But yeah, that was our inverter moment. That was our inverter aha moment when that all happened. So if any of you found this useful or helpful or had the same issue, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and stay with me through the process of converting our 2004 Prowler into a boondocking home that we can live in while I continue going to school and my wife does her holistic business. I hope you guys have enjoyed the journey so far and continue on our journey with us to eventually get our own land and build our house.